Hi guys, my name is Shahab, and in this video I want to talk about external configuration store using Azure App Configuration Service. In the previous video we saw how Azure Key Vault could help us save secrets in a proper way for our applications, and now I want to take a closer look into other configuration values and how we could store and use them among our services. The traditional way of deploying configurations was use a file like app.settings.json and deploy it with the executables to the server hosting the applications. The challenges just started. These files are hard to change for one instance of the application, let alone multiple instances running on different servers simultaneously. Not only it adds also additional administration efforts, but also it requires specific security and access control considerations. Plus, they could not be shared among other applications, and they are bound just to one application. By using an external configuration store, which should be highly available and a scalable service, because this is very important, because we don't want this service to become the bottleneck of our services or a single point of failure, right? And then we could move the configurations that are more dynamic to this store. Also, we could have shared configurations both for different instances of the same applications and for separate different applications. One example of this kind of configuration that needs to be shared between different applications could be a legacy database connection string or a message broker connection string for a message broker like RabbitMQ or Azure Service Bus. Now the configurations are centralized and we have better security and access control management over those configurations, which could be a huge benefit and win. So now I think it's enough for theory, and let's see them in action and how we could use Azure App Configuration to achieve this flexibility. So we have a Cosmos DB configuration here. It has an account endpoint, account key, database name, and collection name. This account key is a secret that we need to store in a key vault, but for now we want to focus on account endpoint, database name, and collection name. We have this app settings at development here, and we want to have this section now somewhere that is more centralized using Azure App Configurations. To achieve that, let's first create an Azure App Configuration. We go to portal.azure.com, and then you could click on App Configuration or search here for App Configuration and hit the Create button, follow the wizards, and it should be straightforward. I'm choosing my AZ presentation subscription. There is no resource group, so I'm gonna create a resource group, rg demo config. Then choose a location that is closer to your location. In my case, I'm gonna use North Europe. Then the resource name, let's call it APC App Configuration Demo. And I'm using a free tier here. You could use the standard tier, and to know how much it will cost, you could always see the pricing details, or you could go to Azure pricing calculator to see that. And then next, networking, I don't change anything. For the tags, I think I have a policy that I need to have this purpose there. So review and create, and when all the validations passed, we could hit the create button. It might take some time for the resource to be created. I'll fast forward the video to when it is created. Okay, our resource is created. The first thing that I highly recommend everyone to first do is to go into the settings and access keys and make sure that you disable access keys, because as we talked about this in the previous video, we don't want to have any secret or any connection string stored in our application. We have Key Vault for those things, and also there is this mechanism that we need to authenticate the application or the workstation that is connected to our Azure environment. So first of all, we are going to disable this access keys. Yes, I understand the things, and we are disabling them. The next thing is going to the access control IAM and give the user and add a role assignment to these app configurations, and give the user a proper permission that is needed there. In this case, we because I want also to add some configurations, I'm just giving my user the app configuration data owner, but you could give a data reader to your applications, just reading their configurations. They don't need to maintain anything. This is a place that you have more granular access control over who could do what in this resource. So I'm now choosing this app configuration data owner. I'm going to the members and selecting a member. I'm giving access to my user and select next, review and assign. One thing that we need is to copy the endpoint for these app configurations. There's no secrets to be worried about, so we could just easily go to our app settings the same way as we did for our Key Vault and say app configuration as a connection string and just put the value there, app configuration. Hopefully there was no typo. The first thing is to add a NuGet package dot Azure App Configuration. I'm adding this NuGet package, install. Then we need to add Azure App Configuration to our configuration stack. So checking for the existence of the configuration in our app settings or in our configuration builder builder.configuration.get connection string, and it was this value app configuration. I'm copying that value, and if it is something, we call it app config URL, and then here we are adding the configuration that add Azure App Configuration. The same as with the Key Vault, it accepts a connection string, or we could have an action. The first overload, we could use the first overload, passing an Azure App Configuration options to this action and configure our applications. Because we don't have any connection string here, so these two are not usable. So we are going to use options, and we are passing a delegate there. Options dot connect. Here we need the URI. We are using again, we are not using those who are accepting connection strings because we don't have any. We are using the one that accepts an URI endpoint and a token credential. So here I'm initializing my URI with the app config URL, and I'm passing again like new default Azure credential. So far, with this code, we could be connected to our Azure App Configuration, and it will be in our configuration stack. However, we need to tell this configuration which keys we want to be selected, and we could have like a key filter. For the key filters, I'm going to use this configuration prefix. So for me, it will be the configuration prefix plus a colon, and then the rest would be the keys that I want to use in my applications. And for ASP.NET to automatically map those keys to this Cosmos DB configuration class that I have, I want also to mention that you need to trim every key that you are reading with the value of the configuration prefix and this colon. So the same value. Let's add the colon in here as well, and then just use the configuration prefix. So in both of them. So when my application is connected to the desired app configuration, it will select every key that starts with demo configuration colon and my environment colon. And actually here I made a mistake. We actually need $, and we actually need configuration prefix colon star. That means that we are looking for any key, every key that starts with this configuration prefix. And then we trim that configuration prefix because we want it to be automatically mapped to here. Let's go to our app configuration, create some of those configuration. So let me also copy this value. I'm creating a new key value, so it will be config. I've probably not copied it. Demo configuration colon development colon Cosmos DB and account key. Apply. And I'm going to add the other ones. Here we need those values as well, so then it will be database name. Instead of account key, we will have database name. Database from app dev environment, apply, and then if I just scroll that one, I could copy this key value. Just make sure that when you copy paste, you don't have extra space in here, because then the configuration will not work for that specific key. The collection name and then the collection from there. Okay, here I added all the configuration values. Okay, let's run our application, but before running it, I think there's something. I'm removing this column from here because I already added there, and I'm adding this part instead of this. So I'm removing that prefix like with the colon from the configuration. Let's run the application now and see how it works. Okay, our app is up and running, and now we could run this HTTP query to get our configuration. And you will see now these values are coming from the Azure app configuration that we set up earlier. So now we want to see more features here. First of all, bear in mind that you could have multiple select and trim key prefixes in case that you want to have app specific configurations or use shared ones. You could also have like the select statement with the configuration, I don't know, like shared star or something like that, and then trim also that part, so being more flexible. But for now, I want to focus on other features that we could have here. One thing is that we stored the account key at the moment in our Azure app configuration. If you see, it's nothing hid, nothing secure, so it's something in here, account key from dev, but we don't want it to be like that. We want our secrets to be stored properly. I could combine the features of the Key Vault and Azure App Configuration together. Here I'm going to add a Key Vault, configure Key Vault for our app configuration. So Key Vault options. Instead of adding Key Vault directly to app configurations, I'm gonna tell my app configuration to be able to read from the Key Vault and connect it to that Key Vault and fetch the keys and fetch the secrets from there. And the reason, I will describe the reason momentarily, but let's first configure our Key Vault. Key Vault options dot register. For registrations, we need a new secret client and new secret client, and the secret client requires a Key Vault URI and credential. So I'm gonna put this into a variable appconfig equals that one instead of this, and here I'm checking if the Key Vault connection string exists or not. Builder.configuration that get connection string, and that would be this file in our app settings at JSON, the vault URI. I'm copying that one, and here that one in quotations, if that exists as a vault URL, then we are going to configure our key vaults for our application. So here we could say appconfig that configure key vault, and then in the key vault options that we are registering, we are saying new URI vault URL, and then again we need this default Azure credential, but I'm gonna grab this one and like use it here where Azure credential, and use it in both places. Yes, so nothing else is required. The thing is, now I need to go and create a key vault. To do that, we are going here again and searching for a key vault. We could just create a key vault, create. I'm using the AZ presentation subscription. I'm using the same resource group. Then I'm adding a name, kv-demo- the key vault name needs to be unique, so I'm just adding my initials there, and again using the location that is more close to where your application is going to be running, and the pricing tier using the standard tier. Also, you could go and check the other things. The access configurations, this is also the best practice, and I recommend that you use Azure role-based access controls. Do not use vault access policies and those kind of stuff. And then the rest I'll just skip. The tags, I need to tag it anyway. And this one next, when the validations are passed, we could create the resource. Again, this might take some time. I will fast forward the video until the resource is deployed. Okay, the resource is created. The first thing that we need to do is going to the access control and give the user the proper permission that is needed. Decide the permission based on your scenario. Here, I think I will going to filter over the secrets, and Key Vault secret officer is any action on the secrets of a Key Vault. I'm just doing that because I want to create some key and then read it from the application, which my user is authenticated from my machine. But you could also use like Key Vault secret user or whatever permission is more appropriate in your scenario. So just make sure that you're not giving a very like powerful permission to the applications, because it's not a good practice. Like the less permission, the better. That role assignment is there. So now let's go to the secrets. I hope my token already is applied. Here in the previous video, we saw that we need to apply this kind of use this kind of double dash pattern for nested sections, but I'm gonna avoid that because we are going to tell Azure AppConfiguration to connect to this Key Vault and read the value from here. But the key exists in the Azure AppConfiguration, so this shouldn't be a problem. Let's say account key from Key Vault, and let's create that one. It is created. So now I'm going back to the app configuration that I had, this APC demo, and in the configuration explorer I'm going to keep this key. I'm going to copy this one, but we don't and then remove it because this is a normal key and we don't want that in our application. Then I'm going to create a Key Vault reference here. The key is the same, like the value, just make sure that you don't have a space in here, but this key could point to another key in our Key Vault or a secret in our Key Vault. So I'm pointing to there, and it could point to the latest version or a specific version. So now it is applying that. And here, if we want to see the values, the value for it is this pointer to the secret in the Key Vault. It's not the value of the secret. Now, before going to the application, let's go to the Key Vault again and copy its endpoint. I'm going to the Key Vaults because we need the Key Vault URI for our settings in here. Vault URI should be this one now. And let's run the application. Our application is up and running. Let's run the configuration. Let's run the HTTP configuration against our app, and you will see now the value is coming from the Key Vault. So we were able to store all of our configurations in our external configuration store, and also configure that store to read our secrets from the Key Vault properly. So everything is set up properly. Let me change some values, like the database name. Let's change it in our application configuration. I'm going to the appc demo, and I'm going to the configuration explorer, just hiding the things to have more space. And here I'm going to change the database name. Let's edit, and let's say database 2, or let's say second database, and I'm applying, and I'm running my HTTP endpoint again. But you will see we are always getting the old value. That's because the configuration is fetched at the startup of the application, and there is no refresh mechanism configured in here. Let me stop the application first. To configure the Azure App Configuration, to be able to refresh the configs automatically, we need to configure a refresher. So we have this refresher options. It also using the same pattern. Refresher options dot register. We need to register a key that the library is looking for that key, and if that key changes, it will refresh the configurations that we want. So I'm going to say here like using the same pattern. So I'm gonna use this prefix thing. I'm gonna say like I'm looking for this configuration prefix and Cosmos DB, because I'm just interested in changes in my Cosmos DB section, and I'm gonna send Sentinel. This acts like a guardian. So if the value of this property changes, we want to refresh everything for our configuration. This refresh all, we say it is true, right? The reason is that we don't want with every change that we are doing to any property that takes affected immediately, because usually the changes that we are making are related to each other. So we want to have a point that we could control when those changes needs to be applied. So I'm gonna create that Sentinel configuration in here. Not edit, sorry. Create new key value. Just make sure that don't have a space, and let's call it version 1, and let's just grab the value from here just for not having any typo issues. Apply. So the value is 1. And now let's run the application again. Okay, the app is up. Now let's run our HTTP. We are getting this value, the second database. I'm going to change that second database name to something else. Let's say it is our third database now, apply. And now we need to change the sentinel because this is where we're saying if the value of this key has changed, then you need to refresh that one. And if I run this one, we are still getting the old value. There are two reasons actually for that. The first reason is that the refresher has a cache expiration of 30 seconds. But even if that 30 seconds in our scenario is reached, we will still get the old value. The reason for that is that the refresher requires a middleware to be registered in our applications. The reason is the authors of the library want to be more performant with this configuration, fetching the changed configurations, not fetching that every 30 seconds to hit our applications. But they have this middleware in between. So on every request, it checks whether the configuration has expired or not. And if it has expired, then it checks whether there is a change or not. And then it fetches the changes. So not every 30 seconds doing that thing. So first of all, I'm going to override that cache expiration with this set cache expiration. It accepts a time span, so time span dot from seconds. Let's put it like 5 seconds. It's just for our demonstrations. To have the middlewares and in place, we need to add Microsoft.ASP.NET Core.AppConfiguration. Microsoft extensions Microsoft I think it's .appconfig.ASP.NET Core. Yes, Microsoft.Azure.AppConfiguration.ASP.NET Core. We need this NuGet package. I'm installing it. Then here I'm going to first register the services. Add Azure App Configuration, registering the services that are required in the middleware, and then I'm going to use I'm going to app.use Azure App Configuration middleware in my applications. Now, if we run the app again, so we have now these values. Let's go and change the database name again. I'm changing it to fourth attempt. And let's now change the sentinel to make sure that the changes are applied there. And now if we run this again, it's still the third account, and now you see the fourth value is now fetched from the configuration. So everything set up now properly. To recap, we need to first add the Azure App Configuration to our configuration stack. Then we need to connect through a URI and an Azure credential. We need to specify which keys in this Azure App Configuration we are interested in, and whether there should be a trimming of the key prefixes or not. And then if we are interested in having a refresher, we need to first configure the refresher with registering which key is the guardian of which key this library needs to keep an eye on that one, and if the value of that change, it will refresh which keys. And after that, make sure that you're adding the Azure App Configuration services that are required for this Azure App Configuration middleware that takes care of refreshing the keys. If you have some secrets, just connect your app configuration to your Key Vault and store the key in the app configuration, and then you don't need to deal with anything with the Key Vault directly with your applications. I think I covered most of the important things here. I hope you enjoyed it. Then have a nice day and enjoy coding.